Good afternoon, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Michael. How are you?
Really good, really good. Thank you for hopping on today, and I'm glad we're going to get to talk a little bit and share spit some wisdom and insight to our community. As we get ready to dive in, I think the first thing I want to ask you is what does Mavacy stand for?
We get that a lot, Michael, and it's a made up word, and it comes from mavericks who want to leave a legacy. So if you combine maverick with legacy, you come up with Mavacy, and
Awesome.
that's the origin of the word.
So, what does that mean to you? What does that mean? What's a maverick? What's a legal
I think it,
legacy?
I think it means something different to everybody. To me, a maverick is someone who is willing to do things that have never been done before, to
Mhm.
take a risk, right? To push the limits, to make an impact, to make a difference. And on a legacy front, legacy also means something different to individuals. I had actually a phone call earlier today talking to a friend of mine who I said, well, now you're just trying to leave a legacy, right? He's made all the money he needs to make. And now it's just about leaving legacy. And he actually said, it's not about me, myself, my name, my legacy. That's not really what it is. It's about making an impact. And I thought about that. And for me, as I think about legacy, it really isn't about the name. It's about the impact that will go on long after you're gone. And so
Mm,
that's, to me, how I think of legacy.
interesting. So, I think as you think about this, tell me a little bit about Mavacy. What is it? Let's start there.
Yeah. So Mavacy is redefining the legal experience of the future. And the whole idea behind that is to simply improve lawyers' lives. Now, why is that important? I don't know if you know. I certainly didn't know before I got involved deeply in this industry that being a lawyer is difficult. And some lawyers, unfortunately, have very, very horrible situations in their lives. And it stems from a work life balance that doesn't exist. The legal industry has some of the highest dependency rates, has some of the highest divorce rates. We have suicide rates that are very high. And that comes from a lack of balance. It comes from a lack of well being. And it all stems from traditional law, which is grind it out, work more hours, charge more money. Don't worry about it if you're exhausted. Don't worry about it if you miss your kid's basketball game. They'll have another birthday next year. Just grind it out, get it done, do whatever it takes. And you know what? Sleep in the corner. There's room. So we're doing things differently. We really care about the lawyer's well-being. There's many ways we do that. First and foremost, though, is that we make it an item. We make it an issue. It's forefront of every decision we make. Will this be good for the attorney? Will this improve the attorney's day? Will it then improve their lives and trickle into their family? If they come home refreshed, if they go home knowing that work is still getting done while they're at the basketball game, well, their lives are certainly going to be better. And if their lives are better and their family lives are better, we think that the client ultimately is going to be serviced better. So it's a win-win-win.
Interesting. That sounds too good to be true.
It's too good to be true because no one's ever tried it before. So it sounds shocking to you, right? Just because things have been done a certain way forever doesn't mean that it's the right way. And that's really what we're all about. One of our core values is to be creative. We don't
Mhm.
accept the way things have always been done. We push the limits. We look for better ways.
Interesting. Let's talk about that. Define your culture without using the word culture. What does it look like on a Tuesday at 3 p.m.?
Hopefully, it's a group of people looking to help everyone else within the organization. Hopefully, it's everybody thinking about what they can do to serve their teammates. We have something called the Business Solutions team. That's the non-billing professionals. If you walk into our office, you should feel a sense of teamwork. You should feel a sense of comfort in knowing that everyone is on the same team, right? We don't have different class systems. On a Tuesday afternoon, I hope that people are problem solving and anticipating the needs of the billing professionals. And that could be as simple as making sure somebody didn't skip their lunch, as simple as that sounds. Or It could be, I know we have a document that needs to be turned around next week. Let me get this out today. Because one of the things we try to live by is delivering on time, on budget, before somebody asks. So we have to think about that constantly. It just doesn't happen overnight.
So let me ask you this: was there a moment where your values cost you something, and why would you do it again?
Where my values cost me something. I think that we're externally focused. That's one of our core values. And that means you have to put others' needs before your own needs. So there's certainly been times when I've had to sacrifice something that's going on in my own life, either personally or professionally, to put the needs of others in front of me. And that's not a negative. It might have been hard for me to do that. I had to maybe sacrifice, but that's a core value that isn't just written on the wall. It's what we live by. And as a founder, I have to make sure that I'm leading by example. And so there's going to be days where I have to do that. I have to sacrifice for the greater good of the company, of the team. And I know in the end, it'll come back and reward me as well.
So one thing I find is with culture, you got to be able to have communication, right? Open communication. So feedback loops are an important part. Is how do you make candor safe and useful in the organization?
That's a tricky one, right? Because you have to be comfortable hearing things that you might not want to hear as a leader. And it's oftentimes difficult to encourage what could be taken as negative comments, but really if you look at it as constructive criticism, I think you should have an open door policy to let people, you know, have a format where they can give their opinions. They may not be correct. They need to be honest. They need to feel open. And one of the things that is one of the strongest tools in the toolbox that most of us don't realize is vulnerability. So we really try to allow people to be vulnerable. And part of that vulnerability might be an uncomfortable conversation. It's within those uncomfortable conversations that we see the most growth and we gel together as a team. So we encourage people to be as open and honest as possible.
Awesome, awesome. So let me ask you this: what's a recent hard decision you're proud of that you made, and what made it hard?
I think the trickiest part is we're in the people business and we're really playing in a game of emotional intelligence and limiting beliefs. And not everybody can handle or is necessarily built for going all in and providing what we call unreasonable legal hospitality. And so I think that the hardest part is with personnel and making decisions of moving people to different seats, or maybe even at times moving them out of the organization. And that's difficult to do, but in the end, it's better for not only the company, but for that individual. Because if it's not working, why are we going to torture them or the organization? And so to me, people issues are the number one most important thing and the hardest thing. So that's something that I would say challenges us, will always be a challenge. I think for most companies, especially growth oriented companies who truly want to make a difference, we have to face the fact that this isn't for everybody.
Awesome, awesome. Let me ask you this: as a leader of the organization, what's the clearest way you articulate vision so people actually act on it?
I think it's something you have to constantly remind people of. It's every day. It's speaking it into existence. It's showing people through your actions. It's constant. There is no silver bullet. Like if you tell someone a vision, they're not just going to automatically get that vision. You have to reinforce it through events. We do Zoom calls. We're a dispersed firm. We have people all over the country. And with technology, luckily, just like you and I today, we're not sitting in the same room, but it feels like we are. We really have to utilize technology and do simple things. You know, we had what we call a Zoom water cooler event. And so water cooler is pretty cool. You go to the office, you bump into somebody at the water cooler. I don't know if there is water coolers anymore. You get the idea. You chit chat. You learn something about the person. You build rapport. How do you do that when you're dispersed? Well, you do it via Zoom. And so we have a virtual water cooler event. And last month was just joking around about Halloween and costumes and candy. And you might think that's a simple, silly thing, and it is. It makes a big impact. And that reinforces the vision without talking about the vision because people then understand, wow, that's a pretty cool company. They're embracing technology. They really do care about the culture. They care about the team getting together, getting to know one another. And you know what? We can also have fun, laugh, de-stress, and then get back to work.
Nice. Awesome. Well, let me ask you this: is as the organization has grown, how have you found ways to develop leaders within the organization? How do you develop up some of the next level of leaders that you're bringing to the organization?
Back to the tough conversations, Michael. It's
Mhm.
really through mentoring and coaching and spoon feeding so that people understand what's going on. And a lot of that is tough conversations because if they're unwilling, and we always ask, can I give you some feedback? If they're unwilling to take that feedback, it gets very difficult.
Sure.
You'll know who's a future leader when you ask them that question. If they're like, absolutely, please give me the feedback. I want that feedback. So it's spending a lot of time not expecting them to know everything because they won't. 20, 30 years ago, I certainly didn't know everything. I still don't know everything. I'm a student. I'm a junkie for growth. And I think that that's the best way to speak with people is give them constant feedback, ask them if they're willing and open to that feedback, doing it, showing them how to do it, doing it with them, and then letting them do it while you watch them do it is probably the best way for them to ultimately grow. But you have to give them a chance to also fail. And failure is not bad. Failure is progress as long as you're failing forward. And so we try to instill that in everyone we work with.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, what's one as a leader? What is one small habit that you have had that has really had a tremendous impact? What's one thing that you do as a habit that you find as a leader has had a ton of impact for you?
Well, I got to tell you, the way I need to show up every day is probably the most important part of being a successful leader. And for me, I think it's very important to have a morning routine. And that morning routine sets you up for how you're going to show up for the day, whether you're going to win or lose the day. My morning routine is very different than someone else's morning routine. I will tell you that I I don't miss a morning routine. It's non-negotiable. It starts me off on the right direction so I can deal with whatever fight is coming. There's going to be a battle. There's always a battle. Are you prepared to win the battle or not? So for me to show up as the best leader, I stick to a very stringent morning routine so that I can show up the best version of myself. And some days I'm more successful than others at that, but that's really what sets me off and allows me to make an impact.
Great, great, awesome. Well, I think I want to going to take a left turn here. We're going to talk a little bit about succession, if that's okay. So, when you think about succession, just in general, why is having succession for a business important?
Well, I think most people think of there's never going to be an end. You've built this business, you're going through your day, and it's just always going to be the way it is, right? None of us want to think about when we're gone. We don't want to focus on that. It seems so negative. And so I think the reality is that if you're truly building a business that you want to last, then you want to make an impact back to the legacy and impact, you've got to think about what comes next? How do you ensure that your team is taken care of, not just yourself and your family, your team, your clients? What's going to happen when you're long gone and not on this planet any longer?
Yeah. So if I'm a lawyer out there or a law firm, and I haven't thought about it. Let's say after this podcast, I hear about it. I should think about what does that even mean? Okay, so I heard this guy talk, and
But
he talked about law firm succession planning. I don't know what
yeah,
that is.
yeah. So it's interesting, Michael, because lawyers often do succession plans for their clients, and 73% of lawyers do not have a succession plan themselves. So they are going to work until they die or work until they quit, and there is no monetization of the business they built. So what did they do? They built themselves a great job. At Mavacy, we think and we know, and we've developed a better way where you can monetize all of the work and all of the years that you spent building a business to ensure that not only are you and your family taken care of for the future, that you're like I said earlier, your business associates, your teammates, your clients are taken care of. It's a smart plan because if you don't plan, then you're certainly going to fail and there's going to be an ending that probably is not very comfortable, not what is expected. So fail to plan and plan to fail.
Is there do you have a piece of advice for someone who's thinking about a succession plan but is kind of on the fence about jumping?
I think it's just have the conversation. What does it look like to have a succession plan? Does that mean I'm done? I'm out? I no longer work? I'm no longer in control? My people get fired? Like, there's so many questions that people have, I think, in the back of their mind. Rather than make assumptions, I think you just explore the opportunity, ask the questions. You'll find out that the whole idea of succession planning is not the end, but it's actually the beginning of the next phase for your business. And you'll find that you have the opportunity to continue to work and service your VIP clients if that's what you choose to do. You have the opportunity to elevate some of your current teammates. You have the opportunity to take care of your family and have a plan to monetize what you've built. And in fact, even grow what you've built. So I think it's a very different option than what most people think when they hear succession plan.
Hmm. Is there a how does someone know when they're the right fit? Like, is there a right fit or is there a right ideal succession plan lawyer or law firm?
You know, it's interesting because I talk to many people and most of the people are thinking about what comes next. It doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to leave the business, but they're thinking about what comes next. So as a you certainly could be ready to retire, right? If I was ready to retire, I might be thinking, "Oh, wow, I better have a succession plan." What I'm finding though is that most people are still at the point where they want to be involved, they want to work, but maybe they've taken their business, their law firm, as far as they can on their own, and they really want to partner with a company that can deliver resources, help them take a step back, help them monetize what they built, and at the same time help them build the business and take it to the next level. So it's not just for people who want to retire or hit the beach tomorrow. It's for those that, they've got 2, 3, 4 years left in them. They want to enjoy their life. They want to service marquee clients. They don't want to give up the potential of the growth, but they don't want to handle all the non-billable items. They don't want the headaches any longer. We offer a solution so that business can run as usual, business can grow, and you, the business owner, can have less headaches. And I think that's really what it is eliminate pain points as well as unlock opportunity. I don't think anyone thinks of succession planning like that.
That's great. That's great. I appreciate it. It wouldn't be a conversation without talking some sports. Let's see. We had a recent World Series.
Oh boy.
Did you have any opinions on who you wanted to win that? Obviously, we know who won, but were you rooting for someone?
You know, I being on the West Coast, I guess you had to go for the West Coast, LA. I have some Canadian friends as well. But what I find interesting is that towards the end, I think that people were counting the Dodgers out, right? I don't know, it's 3-0, 3-1, you know, it came down to that really the ninth inning. Like there's no way the Dodgers are going to pull this off. And that was so fascinating. I think it was one of the best World Series because of that. Just when you thought it was over is when it just began. It certainly
Yeah,
was an exciting ending and everyone on the West Coast is all merged up with their
yeah. So, so as baseball comes to an end, I feel like every other sport is just kicking off. Is there, whether it be college or professional, is there a team you're going to say this team's going all the way in either collegiate or the
uh,
professional level that you got to root for?
unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because it's been a struggle being the fan that I am. I'm a Bills fan, so I'm always going to root for the Bills. And we actually have some great players and a good shot. However, we had a good shot last year as well. And I know one of these years we're going to hit it, but I always have to stick with my Bills.
Yeah, okay. So Bills in the Super Bowl. You
Why
heard it
not?
here. You heard it
Why
here
not?
first.
Bills to win the Super Bowl, though. I don't want to be
There you
in
go.
another Super Bowl. I want to win the Super Bowl. Let me be specific.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Brian, I want to thank you for taking the time to hop on today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to having our listeners listen in on what we just got to chat about. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Michael. It was a pleasure.